What is up, sports fans? What is up, Seattle Mariners fans? I can't believe I am saying this, but Monday, May 5th, and the Mariners are leading the AL West at 20-13. They hold a 2-game lead over the cityless Athletics. They've won 8 straight series, and dang, you know what? It was nice not to feel bad after a loss for a change. Happened on Sunday. The Mariners did win that series against the Rangers, marking their 8th straight series win of the season, but pretty rough loss on Sunday, 8-1. But you know what? I kind of felt okay about that. Okay, they've won a bunch. They're going to lose. They can't win them all. And that's definitely a sentiment that I feel like it just has not happened in Mariners fans' minds in a long time. Man, it's just so good to be rooting for a team that's been on fire lately, and a lot of positives to talk about in this episode of Bleav In Mariners about our team on fire. Welcome on in. I'm Schultzy, a Pacific Northwest talk show host. Also, Jordon Schultz, whichever one you want to call me, sitting in with you, based out of Portland, Oregon. Normally work on sports radio 1080 The Fan, but I'm a diehard Mariners fan. Love doing this podcast for Bleav, and excited to get into, like I said, just a lot of positive things, not only happening on the field, but the Mariners have some great injury updates, and players that we were kind of lamenting last week were out for a bit and forcing the Mariners' hand, basically calling up nobodies on the roster or guys that haven't had an opportunity yet. Like, I'm not calling Rylan Thomas a nobody, but they've already been giving Donovan Solano at bats, all right? Like, they were dipping down into the freaking depths and even still managing to win. So we'll talk about the wins. We'll talk about who's coming back from injury soon, get into some recent performances and all the standouts. Once again, we'll talk about Cal Raleigh continuing to hit home runs, and then we'll tell you who's coming off the IL pretty soon. But lately, this team, of course, just been playing so much better than ever. They cannot stop with the success at the plate, and we'll talk about a little bit of that Edgar effect, it seems, as Buster Only pointed out on social media, and then in his interview with Stacy and Bump up in Seattle on Seattle Sports. Really good interview that he did there, and pointed out that the Mariners have been good since Edgar took over on offense. Pretty cool. We'll look at those numbers as well. But even still, lately, this team still really freaking good. That six-game winning streak, of course, snapped going into Sunday's game against the Rangers. But check this out, guys. The Mariners sitting at 20-13 right now. A projected win total by Fangraphs of over 88, like 88.2. And at this point, almost an 80% chance to make the playoffs. Now, would be a 55% chance for them to win the division and a 23% chance to win the wild card. The important one, though, a 7.4% chance to win the World Series. So, yeah, to quote Lloyd at a Dumb and Dumber, like, you're saying there's a chance. Like, yes, abso-freaking-lutely there is, and a huge chance that the Mariners make the playoffs, and actually almost a 40% chance that they would clinch a bye. They're playing that well right now. Little frustrating, though. The team that the Mariners are going to go into play here in actually a couple of hours as I'm taping this episode, the cityless Athletics, nipping at their heels in second place at 19-16. But according to Fangraphs, they are still below the Astros and Rangers, who are in third and fourth, respectively, as far as chances to make the playoffs go. Fangraphs not buying this Athletics team, doesn't think it's a sustainable performance. But as of now, the Mariners 2 games ahead of the Athletics, only 2 games. That's really not a lot. And they were 3 games ahead of the Rangers going into their series with them. So you would think, oh, hey, like, we're able to extend this lead a little bit, maybe add some padding to the rest of the lead in the division. Oh, no, there come the other teams. And of course, it happens to be the freaking Athletics. Yeah. Go back to 2002, 2003, when the Mariners won 90 plus games each of those seasons and didn't make the playoffs because of the Athletics. And I'll tell you why I'm frustrated about the Athletics always seeming to be good when the Mariners are good, but still a really nice thing to see their playoff chances. I know it's early, all right, but lots of positives to talk about. And one of those things being their playoff chances being so high. And frankly, that kind of showing me that the rest of the league, it's not just Fangraphs. The national media has been talking a lot about the Mariners. The rest of the league really been taking notice of the success that they've been having here in Seattle. Of course, last 10, they've been on a freaking roll, 8-2, And that 13-1 win over the Texas Rangers back on Friday, man, that got it off right as far as this series went. Got it off on the right foot. Cal Raleigh, 2 home runs again, a grand salami on a pitch that was out of the strike zone. But he basically just took that torpedo bat down out of the zone near the plate and just went right over that right field fence, man. It looks so pretty. And that torpedo bat just has been nails for him on the left side of the plate. Total now 12 home runs, leads Major League Baseball. I just love seeing him continue to succeed there. Of course, Brian Wu, a nice performance. Pretty quiet, perfect game going into the 5th inning. Only ended up pitching 6 1/3, but 8 strikeouts, only the 1 hit allowed total. Man, Brian Wu is definitely, I'll say it again, pitching like the ace of this staff, especially with Kirby and especially with Logan Gilbert down, although some good news coming about them here, as we'll get to coming up here soon in this episode of Bleav in Mariners. But yeah, that 13-1 win seemed like everybody was in on the action, man. Julio Rodriguez even had a home run in that one. Cal Raleigh, 5 RBIs total, like we said, to bring his total up to 23 RBIs on the season. Ben Williamson, a couple of more hits and an RBI as well. J.P. Crawford, a couple of more hits and a couple of RBIs as well. And then rookie Rylan Thomas, making his major league debut, got a hit and a couple of RBIs. Just nice to see, man. The offense, even in one of the tougher parks to hit in. I know T-Mobile Park's one of the tougher parks to hit in, but it is just cavernous down in Arlington. And it is not a fun ballpark, especially if you're a team that already struggles at home to go on the road to in your division, but they just didn't seem to care. Balls were flying off the bats all weekend, minus Sunday, of course. But then Raleigh, a couple more hits on Saturday. The Mariners in that 2-1 win. Basically a pitcher's duel, obviously, but still getting some nails performances from one Rowdy freaking Tellez late in the game, a pinch hit, base hit to take the lead, RBI single on top of J.P. Crawford's home run to lead the game off. And Luis Castillo showing up, I would say, on that Saturday game in that 2-1 win against the Rangers. I told my dad this after we watched the game. He looked more focused than I have seen him look all season. I know some Mariners fans have kind of been concerned about, early inning struggles. He'll give it up a little bit earlier in the game, or his first inning or second inning. He'll kind of play with guys a little bit, or it looks like he's playing with his food and runners are left on base more often than not, or he's kind of having to pitch himself out of trouble a little bit. And maybe he'll look a little aloof on the mound at times doing that. But man, the Rock, he looked solid. He looked locked in, and only giving up that run and only striking out 2, but only walking a couple as well, along with 4 hits and a nice 6-inning performance. Just really shows you why he is that steady top of the rotation guy that the Mariners didn't want to trade. And at this point, as much as I hate to say it, because the Mariners are so far down pitching wise with injuries, it's probably a good thing the Mariners didn't trade Luis Castillo in this offseason. And unfortunately, man, with that injury to Tristan Casas, terrible Achilles tear that he just suffered. Like, I know it's kind of a fluky injury, just the way that he stepped on Ty Francis' foot running across the base, trying to leg out a grounder. But man, he's now out for the season. Kind of makes it positive on both ends, double positive that the Mariners didn't end up trading Luis Castillo, because one of those deals thrown out there was for Tristan Casas. But I digress, kind of going off into a little bit of the weeds a little bit. But Luis Castillo, great performance on Saturday. And then one Matt Brash coming back looking so good in his first appearance September of 2023 with the team. Yeah, the velocity was down a little bit, but he got a nice ground ball double play to end the inning and looked pretty solid in that first batter that he faced as well. The movement on his pitches was still there, and the velocity will come back. And then obviously Spire, and then Munoz coming in to close it out. 12 for 12 now on save opportunities. And congrats to Andres Munoz, the AL reliever of the freaking month. Not surprising to see that Munoz is getting this recognition. The whole team, as I mentioned, kind of getting this recognition from the national media and the league. So it's pretty cool. So 2 great wins against the Rangers to seal their 8th straight series win. Unfortunately, they did end up losing 8-1 on Sunday against the Rangers. Logan Evans got hit pretty hard, but it happens, right? I'm not going to lose any sleep over a young pitcher getting rocked in his second ever start in the big leagues. It's going to happen. Probably going to see it happen again to some of these kids. We saw some growing pains with George Kirby at times. I know it took a while, but remember George Kirby, I think it was last year, he finally had a start where he got rocked for like 6 or 7 runs in the first inning like that. It just happens to everybody along the way, and that doesn't make me think that Logan Evans is any less talented. It's his second go on a big league mound, all right? And I'm not concerned about it. And even despite that loss, just so many freaking positives to talk about. This team's overall performance has just been so impressive. I said the word a lot on this last episode of Bleav In Mariners, but resilience. Resiliency seems to be the name of the game. Cal Raleigh still leading, as we mentioned it, the league with 12 home runs, 23 ribbies. That power at the plate just coming through. And this year so far, a high batting average for Cal Raleigh at the plate. Obviously, people have been wanting him to hit a little bit more than 210, 220 for the Mariners, but an OPS of 945 and a batting average of 246 with an on base of 358. Still drawing a lot of walks, but getting a few more singles this year and kind of showing that maturity at the plate. You know, that one extra hit a week or that two extra base hits over the course of a month that you didn't see him getting now seems like you're going to see him getting after you watch his March and April performance going into this first place leading Mariners May that we're going to watch. Hopefully they'll increase their lead in the AL West, but just an amazing month for Cal Raleigh so far. Jorge Polanco been one of the biggest surprises, not only for the Mariners, but in all of Major League Baseball. I mean, frankly, 380, 9 home runs, 26 RBIs. He's batting at an MVP type level right now, leads the team in RBIs with those 26. And of course, JP Crawford, the huge bounce back year that he's having so far, hitting 286 after the weekend, had a hit on Sunday in the loss, but that 405 on base percentage, man, and putting him back at the top of the lineup. We saw him get moved last week up to the 1 spot where he was before. And in my opinion, I do feel like the Mariners are the best when you got JP Crawford at 1 and then Julio Rodriguez or maybe like a Jorge Polanco at 2 in the lineup. I really love JP at the top as opposed to the bottom. It really sucked when he struggled, and Scott Service kind of was forced to just throw him down there. And he's pretty much been down there ever since. But now back to that nice, consistent performance that you're going to see from him. He's good when he's at the top of the lineup. Usually, at least he has been since he got there. So hopefully that can continue at least into this A's series, because the Mariners are going to need to do some damage within the division in the next 3 games. And, you know, all this offensive success that the Mariners have had, despite the loss on Sunday, I think a lot of people really, at least here in Seattle, don't need to question where it comes from, but maybe people in the national media do. I think we all know the answer to this, right? We've seen it. As soon as Edgar Martinez showed up, as soon as Dan Wilson showed up, the Mariners offense just turned right around. And I think the national media is starting to catch on to that. For instance, a recent post on social media from ESPN MLB insider Buster Olney, he said that the Mariners' offensive prowess dated back to the final 2 months of last season. So not just the start of this year. In 82 total games from August 1st, 2024 through Thursday of last week. So this isn't even including the Rangers series against the Mariners. The M's produced the following AL rankings in offense: second in runs, 397, second in home runs, 105, second in stolen bases, 91, second in walk rate at 10.7%, and then second in WRC plus at 118. His whole point essentially is that the offensive success can most likely be contributed to the hiring of Edgar Martinez and that shift to a simpler see-ball, hit-ball mentality. And speaking of which, congrats to Brett Boone, just getting hired literally as I started taping this episode of Bleav In Mariners, just getting hired, announced by Bob Nightingale of USA Today on X as the hitting coach of the Texas Rangers, one of my favorite players growing up. Loved watching Booney hit those bombs for the Mariners. That was like my formative years as a Mariners fan. So it's kind of bittersweet to see him go to Texas, but obviously still going to be rooting for him. And it's a smart hire. Really is a smart hire. And I think kind of along with the Edgar Martinez see-ball, hit-ball approach, seems to me other teams might be going back to, oh, wow, this see-ball, hit-ball approach, kind of making it simple again, might be the thing to do, might be what's actually working, instead of just going through spreadsheets, instead of just going through statistics and trying to find like an outlier, or having, you know, a guy that's never stepped foot in a major league batter's box give your hitters all this information about a pitcher or how they're supposed to attack the batter's box every single night. That wasn't working. Yes, I'm talking about former Mariners hitting coach or director of hitting strategy or whatever he was, Jarrett DeHart. Sure, he's a nice guy, but the dude never played a lick of Major League Baseball, never got close. And you're telling me he can coach Major League hitters on how to prepare their approach at the plate, how to coach them through an at-bat? He doesn't know how to do that. A guy like Edgar Martinez, obviously, with these statistics showing that see-ball, hit-ball strategy works, that he does have the ability to talk these professional hitters through an at-bat. And he's somebody that they're going to listen to. I think Brett Boone's going to have the same effect in Texas. Watch out, folks. I think people are picking up on maybe some of this magic that the Mariners have found in hiring Hall of Famer Edgar Martinez to get them out of this tailspin. So Martinez and Wilson essentially, and yeah, congrats to Brett. Hopefully he does succeed, at least to some level in Texas. Not enough to get them to the playoffs, right? But after Martinez and Wilson arrived, the M's essentially out of that tailspin in 2024. I think they had been 1-8 in their last 9 before the Mariners fired Scott Service and brought Dan Wilson in. From that point on, won 21 of their final 34 games, and their offense ticked way up. In the last month of the season, it was top 5 in every category in baseball. And go and listen to any of those Bleav In Mariners podcasts from the end of last season and just kind of hear the excitement, maybe measured excitement, not quite sure what to do with the excitement, but hey, wow, the Mariners are actually hitting. And it was a pretty quick turnaround and surprising for Mariners fans at the time, but frankly, something that Edgar, he offered the same kind of tutelage when he was here in 2016, 2017, 2018 with Scott Service. The Mariners offense did just as well. Not surprising to see him offering the same kind of success in the dugout for the Mariners this time around. So getting out of that tailspin and moving him essentially into a senior director of hitting strategy role this offseason, bringing in Bobby Magallanes, bringing in Kevin Seitzer to coach hitting along with him. That has truly brought the Mariners offense to a whole new level. Only said on Stacey and Bump. This was a Friday interview that they did on 710 ESPN Seattle. Great interview. Go listen to it. He's heard that Martinez's way of communicating to players also really connects with this group of Mariners. This is a quote from Buster Olney. The idea that the Mariners for basically half a season would be second in runs while playing in their home ballpark, which everyone knows offensive numbers genuinely going to be depressed. That's genuinely impressive. And he's going to say, Buster Olney saying he thinks it's in part because of Edgar Martinez. And I agree with him, man. How can you sprinkle on fairy dust and all of a sudden make hitters in one of the hardest parks to hit in actually look good? That's what the Mariners have been doing this season and to end last season. And Buster Olney points it out correctly. And since August 1st of last year, when you're second in every major category in hitting besides like batting average, you're going to be successful on the field. And we're seeing that coming together for Seattle. And it's just nice to see the national media recognizing that and Edgar Martinez getting his props, but really just seeing what's going on in Seattle kind of being looked at with some eyes too by the rest of the league saying, hey, this might be a strategy that we need to take on as well. It's just so nice to see the Mariners getting their flowers in the social media, and hopefully Hall of Famer Edgar Martinez can keep it freaking going for the Seattle Mariners. We've been talking a lot about the hitters, but I do have to highlight really quickly Andres Munoz, not just been great, but been perfect as the closer of the team so far this season. 12 saves, hasn't given up a single run, a 0.00 ERA, 0.75 whip, 16 consecutive appearances now to begin the season without a run. That actually ties a Seattle's Mariners record, according to Mariners PR. Mark Repchinski did that back in 2017. Munoz looks like he's on his way to another all-star season, and I would not be surprised if he gets AL Reliever of the freaking Year award. Just one AL Reliever of the Month, but an all-star last year was a 2.12 ERA in 60 appearances with 77 strikeouts, 22 saves out of 27 total opportunities, and already to this point, he's getting close to matching some of those numbers. 20 strikeouts and 16 innings pitched to go with 12 of those saves. He's literally already at 12 saves. I guarantee you he's going to have more than 10 the next 70% of the season, or the last 70% of the season. He's allowed 3 base runners in his last 7 appearances. Those were all walks, and he only has 1 outing this season where he didn't register a strikeout. Opposing batters only hitting 100 off of him. Yeah, he's elite, and the Mariners, thankfully, the bullpen's kind of been a little bit of a game of shuffleboard the last month or so to start the season, but Andres Munoz at least solidifying the back end, and then guys like Gabe Spire, maybe Casey Legumina, his ERA is kind of going down a little bit. Maybe they can help sustain that a little bit more going forward. Matt Brash, obviously, coming back, hopefully going to help that calm down, make the Mariners not have to juggle so many arms around. And speaking of which, some injuries too update you on. Actually, some good news that, well, I think maybe will allow the Mariners not having to juggle a bunch of pitchers here soon. Logan Gilbert was only scheduled to throw 2 weeks after he went down on the injured list back on April 26th. It was after he was pulled from a start because basically of a right arm strain. You never want to hear about a forearm strain. It's one of those simple injuries, but it can also turn complicated pretty quickly. It can recover quickly, but also all of a sudden it could turn into something that makes it much worse and end up having Tommy John surgery. A lot of pitchers have gone down with some forearm tightness or like a flexor strain and then ended up having to go on the shelf for much longer. Sucks, but doesn't seem like that's happening here with Logan Gilbert. Logan Gilbert initially had a 2-week shutdown on April 26th for throwing at any point, but we were less than 2 weeks in on Sunday, May 4th. Logan Gilbert throwing during pregame warmups before that loss for the Mariners to the Texas Rangers. So hoping that he is going to be back sooner rather than later. Seems like he's progressing a lot faster than intended. And on top of that, Jerry Dipoto, I'll get to George Kirby in a second. Jerry Dipoto was on MLB Network last Friday talking about Gilbert's injury not being as bad as they thought. So very good news there, and hopefully we'll see Gilbert back on the mound soon. But also some good news, George Kirby, this is via Adam Jude of the Seattle Times. He made a rehab start down at Tacoma over the weekend, touched almost 98 miles an hour, through 42 pitches to get through 3 innings, gave up a home run in the third. But out of those 42 pitches, of course, Kirby, who went down back in March with shoulder inflammation during spring training, through 33 strikes, no walks, 4 strikeouts total. But along with that solo home run, I'd say a pretty darn good performance. We don't know quite when Kirby's going to get back yet, but I would assume that he's going to make another rehab start, maybe 2, before the Mariners would consider him ready to get back into the major league rotation. And also good news about utility man Dylan Moore. He went down with some hip inflammation, but looks like that his stay on the IL not going to be that long. Was doing some rehab work over the weekend before their games down in Texas, telling reporters that he was feeling good. So doesn't seem like there's a reason to believe that he's going to be on the IL long past his eligibility to return, which is on Tuesday against the Athletics. Most likely going to see Samad Taylor or Rylan Thomas sent back down after that. And then another bit of good news regarding a possible injury. Doesn't look like it happened, at least as seriously as we thought. Randy Arozarena leaving Sunday's game against the Texas Rangers was, quote, a little bit of a hamstring thing. That was a quote by manager Dan Wilson, but Danny said not really concerned. Another quote from him is nothing serious. So that's thank God. The Mariners cannot afford to lose any more outfielders at this point. But he was caught kind of trying to stretch his leg out near the first baseline after he singled in the 6th inning. So obvious some tightness was going on there, but thankfully doesn't seem to be serious, at least according to Mariners manager Dan Wilson. So Arozarena most likely going to be fine, and the Mariners not going to have to make another call-up from AAA. Gosh, at this point, if another guy went down, you'd probably have to turn to Dominic Canzone, who I think he did just get like AAA Player of the Week. Congratulations to him, but he is such a 4A player. Every time he comes up to Seattle, it's obvious that he does not know how to hit major league pitching. Hitters have figured out exactly how to attack him. He's like the perfect definition of a 4A player. He hits a bunch of home runs in AAA, but then when he gets to the majors, he just looks lost. He could hit 500 down at Tacoma, and I still wouldn't want him on the Mariners roster, but doesn't look like that's going to have to happen. Arozarena, thankfully, going to be okay, at least according to manager Dan Wilson. All right, the Mariners have a big series. We talked about it earlier in the podcast. A big series coming up against the Athletics, a 3-game set down in Sacramento at that minor league ballpark. The A's 19-16 going into that series, just a couple of games behind the Mariners. Look out for Tyler Soderstrom. Look out for Brent Rooker. Look out for Jacob Wilson. I mean, they got a whole cast of characters. Love J.J. Bleday on their roster as well. Of course, they've got Severino heading up their rotation, which was a big offseason signing, something that they haven't done in quite a while. And the A's are hot, 7-3 in their last 10 games. It's going to be a huge series for your Seattle Mariners. Gosh, man, I said it at the beginning of the episode. The A's are always good when the Mariners are good, and it is just so frustrating. But anyways, despite all that, the Mariners in a strong position to top the division. Hopefully they can win another series, marking their 9th in a row and extend their lead over the A's by a game in the AL West. Appreciate everybody tuning into this episode. We're going to be back on Wednesday. Hopefully got a couple of interviews scheduled. Been out to a couple of people for a couple of weeks, just trying to get things nailed down, where everybody's available on the same day. But appreciate everybody tuning into this episode of Bleav in Mariners. Keep those tridents up, Mariners fans. See you soon.